In tonight's news edition, the King calls for developing business entrepreneurship to provide job opportunities, fight poverty and unemployment, and achieve comprehensive development. The United Nations Security Council starts drawing up a joint condemnation of recent Israeli moves to expand Jewish settlements in occupied East Jerusalem. And the United Nations makes a $1.5 billion appeal to provide life-saving oil to millions of Syrians as fighting continues in the country. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King stressed the need to develop business entrepreneurship due to its role in providing sustainable job opportunities that would contribute to fighting poverty and unemployment and achieve comprehensive development. At a meeting with a group of business entrepreneurs to support pioneer projects, the King stressed the importance of partnership between the public and private sectors in providing a suitable environment for the entrepreneur sector in the kingdom and in turning ideas into productive projects. The government, he said, should provide within the available resources support to the youth to establish their own projects and ensure their success and continuity. King Abdullah urged the private sector to contribute to projects that will be carried out within the Governorate's Development Fund to ensure the distribution of development gains amongst all governorates. The King stressed the importance of spreading the culture of entrepreneurship and supporting business incubators in all universities and companies. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said the success of micro and macroeconomic projects is measured by their social impact on the society. He said the private sector in Jordan is a major partner in the comprehensive development process, especially after the government became a supporter of the private sector work. Minister of Labor Nidal Qatamin discussed with Egyptian Manpower and Immigration Minister Khaled Al-Azhari scopes of cooperation in fields of labor and manpower. Qatamin underlined the importance of the Egyptian officials' visit to solve outstanding issues related to Egyptian workers in Jordan. He added that a number of memoranda of understanding will be signed between the two countries to enhance cooperation and facilitate procedures pertaining to Egyptian laborers. Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Ala Al-Batayne, also met with Egyptian Minister of Petroleum and discussed gas agreements between the two countries. Discussions also covered challenges facing the energy sector in Jordan due to the disruption and decline of Egyptian gas supplies to Jordan. Last November, Egypt agreed to export to Jordan natural gas in accordance with agreement reached between officials from both sides in Cairo. The United Nations Security Council is drawing up a strong joint condemnation of recent Israeli moves to expand Jewish settlement in East Jerusalem. Palestinian officials emphasized that the Israeli expansion of settlements is forcing the Palestinian National Authority to head to the International Criminal Court. However, the Israeli Planning Committee approved a large construction project to build over 2,600 new homes in East Jerusalem. The U.S. condemned Israel and expressed its disappointment in Israel's plans, which will threaten the peace process. The United Nations appealed for $100.5 billion to provide life-saving aid to millions of Syrians suffering in a dramatically deteriorating humanitarian situation. The UN Regional Humanitarian Coordinator said the violence in Syria is raging across the country and there are no more safe areas where people can flee and find safety. Luay Balqar has the details.
As fighting raged across Syria, the government forces attacked targets on the outskirts of Damascus. Syrian warplanes carried out airstrikes and rocket launches towards Ghouta on the village of Mliha. The southern Al-Qaboon suburb of Damascus has been heavily bombed by government forces, leading to extensive damage to buildings, filling the streets with rubble. Yarmouk, a Palestinian district near Damascus's city center, has become one of the latest battlefields for rebels and a target for President Bashar al-Assad's artillery. The rebels have scored significant military gains in recent weeks, capturing several army installations across the country. In Hama province, rebels captured two villages, Kafr Zita and Halfaya, where fighters celebrated after seizing control of the town. Symbols of President Bashar al-Assad were being destroyed at Al-Fayed National Hospital after government forces were driven out of their positions. The city of Daraa is also no stranger to the violence, noting that it's the town where the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad erupted 21 months ago. A group of men trying to carry an injured man through a deserted street came under fire, forcing them to take cover. Despite those rebel successes, bloodshed has been rising, with more than 40,000 killed in a movement that began as a peaceful street protest but has transformed into a civil war. Assad's pivotal allies have largely stood behind him, and Iran believed to be his main bankroller in the conflict, but there are no signs of Assad being on the verge of being toppled. Loy Balkar for the News at 10.
Iraqi President Jalal Talibani's health is improving, and he is responding well to treatment in a Baghdad hospital 2 days after a stroke. The governor of Kirkuk city, who is part of the president's medical team, said that Talibani's condition is stable and he will be transferred to Germany within a day for more treatment. He said a team of doctors from Germany who had treated Talibani for past illnesses had recommended the president be moved there after fully evaluating his condition. Talibani's sudden illness prompted questions about his exit from politics, where he has been a key mediator among Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds. He also helped ease tensions in the growing dispute over oil between Baghdad and the autonomous Kurdistan region. The Egyptian Islamist groups are planning a mass protest in Alexandria on Friday, a move that will raise tension a day before the final stage of a referendum on a new constitution. The rally, announced by the Muslim Brotherhood, responds to a violent confrontation between Islamists and their liberal and secular opponents in Egypt's second city last week. The first day of voting last weekend resulted in a 57% vote in favor of the draft basic law. The final stage on Saturday is expected to endorse that result, as it covers parts of Egypt, especially rural areas, even more sympathetic to the Islamic cause. Opponents of Morsi's staged protest in Cairo last night, but numbers were down on previous demonstrations. Several hundred protesters outside the presidential palace chanted revolution and called on Morsi to leave for the sake of the constitution. Back here at home, Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour reviewed with directors of official media departments, chief editors of daily newspapers, journalists and columnists a host of local and regional issues. Mansour welcomed a visit by the Egyptian Prime Minister Hisham Qandil to Jordan tomorrow and said the kingdom is keen to forge closer cooperation with Egypt. On the national economy, he said measures taken by the government recently were unavoidable to put Jordan's economy on the right track. He said the budget deficit had swelled to 4.2 billion dinars, adding that will further increase the country's debt. On parliamentary elections, the Prime Minister said the polls will be held on time and that the decision is irreversible. Her Majesty Queen Rania joined a group of children at the Mar Mansour Charitable Society for their Christmas celebration. Queen Rania joined the children at the orphanage around the Christmas tree and saw a short performance prepared by the children. The Queen also met with the society's staff and some of its board members. Mar Mansour Charitable Society was established in 1957 and operates under the Ministry of Social Development. It provides services to children in need, including orphans between the ages of 3 and 17. Britain will withdraw nearly half of its 9,000 soldiers from Afghanistan by the end of next year, as Afghan national forces take on a bigger role. British Prime Minister David Cameron told Parliament that the British forces were successful and will return home. Nearly all of Britain's soldiers are due to pull out by the end of 2014, drawing to an end a long, costly and unpopular war that has cost the lives of more than 430 British troops. Cameron added that Britain will keep a small amount of soldiers in Afghanistan after 2014 to help train Afghan forces.
Post-2014, we haven't made final decisions yet. We've said very clearly, no one in a combat role, nothing like the number of troops there are now. We've promised the Afghans that we will provide this officer training academy that they've specifically asked for, and we're prepared to look at other issues above and beyond that, but that is the starting baseline.
The daughter of a former military ruler won South Korea's presidential election and will become the country's first female leader. The 60-year-old conservative Park Geun-hye will return to the presidential palace in Seoul, where she served as her father's first lady in the 1970s. With more than 88% of the votes counted, Park led with 51% to 48% for her left-wing challenger, human rights lawyer Moon Jae-in. Park has promised greater economic democratization for a country that has achieved astonishing success in rising from the ashes of the Korean War to become the world's 14th largest economy. As well as economic and demographic challenges, Park will have to deal with North Korea and said she wants the North to give up its nuclear weapons plan as a precondition for economic assistance. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden will lead an effort to craft policies to reduce gun violence. President Barack Obama is to lay out a plan amid calls for action after the massacre of 26 people, including 20 children, in a Connecticut elementary school. Obama was not expected to unveil policy decisions, but outlined how his administration will proceed. The move could make the issue a second-term priority and add momentum to a national debate over tighter gun control laws. The president demanded changes to the way the United States deals with gun violence at a memorial service in Newtown to prevent such tragedies happening in the future. In a press conference, a White House spokesman reiterated President Barack Obama's plans to issue legislation to prevent the spread of weapons in the country.
Well, he is actively supportive of, for example, Senator Feinstein's stated intent to revive a piece of legislation that would reinstate the assault weapons ban. He supports and would support legislation that addresses the problem of the so-called gun show loophole. And there are other elements of gun legislation that he could support.
In Finland, the Christmas spirit is spreading to football. Players from FC Santa Claus help Father Christmas answer his letters sent from all over the world. Many young footballers around the world are hoping for soccer-related gifts to be found under the tree on Christmas Day. And if they have been extra nice, maybe even something from Santa's favorite team. The league that the team plays with finished its season in October, so members of the club and the elves decided to take a four-wheel drive sleigh to the pitch for a simple game of five-a-side. Barcelona fans were devastated to find out that coach Tito Vilanova has suffered a relapse of cancer. The 44-year-old, who underwent surgery on a tumor in November last year, stepped up from his role as assistant to replace Pep Guardiola as first-team coach for this season. Vilanova has guided the team to the top of La Liga with 15 wins in 16 games, 9 points clear of second place, and into the last 16 of the Champions League as group winners. Finally, to the weather outlook, cold and partly cloudy tonight with a chance for rain in the northern regions. Frost formation is also expected after midnight and in the early morning hours, especially in the Badia regions. Tomorrow, the kingdom will be affected by a depression accompanied by a cold front. Therefore, temperatures will drop and the weather will be partly cloudy with rain accompanied by thunder in the northern and central regions, gradually extending to other parts of the kingdom. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair and partly cloudy weather tomorrow with southerly moderate to brisk winds and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The King calls for developing business entrepreneurship to provide job opportunities, fight poverty and unemployment, and achieve comprehensive development. The United Nations Security Council starts drawing up a joint condemnation of recent Israeli moves to expand Jewish settlements in occupied East Jerusalem. And the United Nations makes a $1.5 billion appeal to provide life-saving aid to millions of Syrians as fighting continues in the country. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.